Hello, and welcome to Freedom Tech Friday, a weekly live and interactive show hosted on the ungovernable X, Noster, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch feeds. We go live for an hour every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. UK time. But you can also catch up later on the ungovernable podcast feed. On Freedom Tech Friday, we like to cover the latest news, trends, and anything related to freedom technologies. That could be anything from Bitcoin or Monero, encrypted messengers, privacy tools, and everything in between. Essentially, if there's a news item, tool, or topic that can help you take back some control in today's digital panopticon, we want to talk about it. My name is Max. I'm the Acting Chief Refreshments Officer at the Ungovernable Empire. And as always, I'm joined by my good friends Q&A, the Head of Customer Experience at Foundation, and Seth, who is COO at Cake Wallet. This is a live interactive show, and you can help steer the conversation. You can comment live, pre-submit questions or topics on socials, boost the show via Podcasting 2.0 apps, send tips, and share with friends and family. The top support from last show comes from Kaz Peeland, who streamed 1,062 sats. Thank you for your support. So before we introduce our guest and dive into the show, Q, Seth, how are we doing?
It's going good. Big week, especially for Zach and I. It's feels like it's been a long time coming. So there's been some mini celebrations going on to finally get this thing out the door. And it's a big one. Yeah, so excited to chat about it.
Likewise, it's weird because this is like partly my baby, but a baby that I abandoned about a year and a half ago. But now seeing the baby growing up and doing so well and real. So it's awesome to see Prime out there. See a lot of things that I had seen and chatted with the team about, and we had thought through so much way back when we started Prime. And then to see it now from the other side as someone who's going to be building on top of it and using it regularly and keeping it in my backpack, I am absolutely pumped for Prime to be here and pumped to grill Zach and Q&A, keep him on the hot seat for a little while.
Yeah, I think it needs doing. So today's show is a little bit different. Obviously, we have our special guest, Zach Herbert, joining us today. He's the CEO and co-founder of Foundation Devices. He's here because after years of developing and delays, which we'll get into, some setbacks, and an insane amount of engineering work, Passport Prime is finally shipping to customers. Now, what I think makes this story interesting for the Freedom Tech Friday audience isn't just that they have a new hardware wallet, it's the story behind it. It's a small team in the US that decided to build a completely new open source hardware device from scratch. New operating system, new communication layer, new form factor, and they've manufactured everything domestically in America. Especially in this industry where basically everyone just ships from Shenzhen, it's pretty bold. So today we're going to dig into what it's actually like to build something like this, the manufacturing, the supply chain, the engineering decisions, the DEI hire of Q&A, and the delays and what it means for the broader Freedom Tech space. So Zach, welcome to the show. How does it feel to finally have the device in customers' hands?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's weird to be a special guest, by the way.
Very special.
It feels. I don't know if I feel it yet. Is the answer to your question? I'm still. I know. Q said that there's some celebrations. I'm still kind of holding my breath.
Yes, I can imagine. Well, it's been weird because I've sort of seen the whole process, and seen snippets and spoken to you behind the scenes and Q and Seth and when was it, a year ago or so, where we went into depth of what you guys were doing. And I've kind of been like on the inside, on the outside mainly, but on the inside. And I know it's been quite a task getting it here. So I think you can pat yourself on the back at least a little bit and say, we got there. It's getting into hands, even though not my hands. I feel very jealous. All of you guys have them, not me.
Huh. When are you getting yours? Did you already get one? Did we send you one?
You tell me. I don't know.
We should
I
have
feel
sent
quite
Mac.
left out.
We should have sent him
buy
first
one?
because if anybody's going to break it, it'll be Max. So we should have sent him as the unofficial QA tester.
The tester, yeah, exactly. It's okay. It's okay. I'm admiring it from afar. I'm seeing the pictures. It looks beautiful.
To be clear,
So let's get into it.
I'm going to send you one.
You are? Okay. You have to come and deliver it to me. I don't think they have postal service where I am.
Done deal.
Okay. So, Zach, Passport Core was obviously your first baby. It's very well regarded in the space, and it's something that I use pretty much every day. What was it that made you make this change and put you and the team through all this stress and build something completely from the ground up? Did you not feel you already had something that's like, okay, this is great, this works, like we're done?
Yeah, I was very proud of what we built with Passport Core. And I think if like we take a step back and think about like when we started the company, the idea for the whole company started in 2019 when I was using a cold card personally. And I was really annoyed that none of the other hardware wallets supported even like Bitcoin multisig well or at all. And I had, learned about this idea of air gapping and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to do something that had the hardcore air gap, but had a much better user experience than, cold card, and just something that would be more accessible to more people, and really just building for something that I wanted for myself, back then. And so, we did the 2 generations of the original Passport, which was Passport Founders Edition. And then, we called it Passport Batch 2. We ultimately ended up calling it, Passport Core, kind of later on retroactively. And I think it's a great device. And I think, it offers some great security, some great usability. But, when you make stuff and when you have a really high bar, I could probably spend like hours complaining about all the things I don't like about it. And so it was never the final form. It was something that I think worked well for like kind of the more hardcore people, but there's so many, things about it that I think could have been, much improved. One is like, building on this MicroPython based firmware, both, pulling in code from CoinKite early on, as some folks know. And then also from Trezor, like their crypto libraries and some other stuff. It's MicroPython from like a hardcore security perspective. It's not designed to be like a security operating system. So that was one thing that was always in our minds, both myself and then one of our co-founders and our CTO, Ken. We talked so much about how like the actual firmware and what we were using as like the foundational firmware was just not really designed to be something that was great for security. And so everyone always talks about like the attack surface and wanting to have like, oh, you don't want to have any shitcoin code in there because like the code is on the device, and you want to keep it as minimal as possible. And it's because the software isn't really designed for having all this different types of code, kind of side by side in there in case something is untrusted. So there's like the whole software and engineering side of things, but then also like the usability side of things. Like Q knows this well from when, we try to work with customers. Like a lot of people don't understand, my phone is showing me this QR code. I'm supposed to scan this QR code from, Passport, and then I just have to scan it back. And like we did some events at PubKey, in New York, and people had no idea what they were supposed to do. And it's, very illuminating to kind of see how more normal people, or even still like Bitcoin people, but maybe a little bit newer, try to interact with it. And it didn't really find it to be intuitive at all. And so that's part of it. And so, we knew that we wanted to do a new operating system. We knew we knew from very early on we wanted to do it. We waited until this third generation product to do it. We knew we wanted to solve a lot of the usability type concerns as well. But then finally, there was the other realization that I'm supposed to, carry all these devices around. I'm supposed to have YubiKeys and these 2FA codes, and then also the hardware wallet, and then all this other stuff. And I'm supposed to go watch Q's or Seth's like tutorials and spend hours on their websites, learning how to
That's a drag.
be like,
Yeah.
Like who's gonna do that?
Yeah, it's not something you want to do with your life if you can avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we did this, right? And we kicked this project off at the end of 2022, and it took a little bit longer than we expected to get it here.
Okay, and some of that time getting it here and working on a completely new operating system, I assume that comes down to like auditing and like checking that this thing is obviously secure and works, and when it gets into people's hands they don't have issues. Like, how does that work, building something completely from scratch?
So firstly, the good thing is it wasn't completely from scratch, or at least we thought it wouldn't be, but it ended up being mostly from scratch. So we started with a really cool open source Rust project called Zeus OS. That was part of this like cool hacker type project from this guy called Bunny, who's pretty famous in like the open source hardware world. And he had this cool Rust operating system for his project. And we said, oh, like this actually checks off a lot of the boxes for what we want to build. Let's use that as a starting point and build on it. And it had never been actually distributed in like mass market consumer products. It was part of like kind of a crowd-funded project, and I don't think that had even shipped yet when we started. But we ended up like significantly diverging from this project. So while there's a lot of core components that come from it, if you look at like the effort, it's just, vast majority of it was new code. And so I think it's just more of a question of like, how do you know when you're done, and how do you know how long it's going to take? And when you're building this new operating system, like when do you go pencils down, and how do you build it where you're like building the actual core operating system components, but then you're also building like the apps and the features on top of it, and then you're trying to kind of converge at the end with like a final working product, and you're building it for a specific hardware that you've also, that you're also building the hardware for. And so you control everything, the drivers, the component selection, all that kind of stuff. And then trying to figure out like, is this secure? And of course, we did like a third-party security audit, but like we don't really rely on that. That's more like a stamp of approval. And then also like, is this thing robust? Like, if when we release the first firmware updates, will it update? If something goes wrong and we screw up something, do customers have a way to like recover the firmware on the device so that they don't get like bricks if we make a mistake? So much of the effort in the last few months has been working on that and making sure that everything is like rock solid and stable. So just this has been, it's crazy to think that it took like probably about 3 years of software development to get to this point.
Which is weird, because it's normally software that's the easier part and hardware that's the hardest part, as far as I can tell from speaking to you and anyone who's in this type of business. So that amount of time is, it's a lot, but it does a lot of different things compared to your previous device. I think maybe I'll throw this one at you, Q, because it has been a while since we've talked about the features and how this differs. Can you talk about the differences between the two devices that you currently offer, the Core and the Prime? Like what changes and like why did you have to have this new operating system to be able to do the things you can do with Prime?
Yeah, good question. And to be clear, you said about that we offer both devices. Passport Core is no longer on sale, so you can't actually buy it now unless you go to a third-party reseller that might still have some stock. They're not available on our website and are very unlikely to ever be again. But in terms of like the differences, Passport Core was the air-gapped, lockdown, Bitcoin-only focused device for the ultimate in cold storage. Whilst we tried to get the finer balance between that and usability. I personally think we did a really good job compared to what else is out there. But as Zach kind of alluded to earlier, with an air gap, a true air gap where you use QR codes or micro SD cards, it's only so much you can do from a user perspective before you just butt up against the architecture. Like you have to get some information over that air gap somehow. Obviously, that's generally speaking is via QR codes. And that's where a lot of newcomers fall over. And that mental burden of trying to understand what information is where, which device do I need to be interacting with at which point. Like you just cannot fix that because of the air gap, essentially. When we coupled that with the fact that, we wanted to produce a device that does much more than that. So like Zach said, prevent people having to carry YubiKeys, have a home for their additional seeds, be able to store their files. Like we were like, well, we should be able to do all of that in one easy to use device. And you should be able to choose your own journey. And that's where KeyOS came in, and the additional connectivity options that comes with Passport Prime, namely NFC keycards, which we use for magic backups with the provided keycards that we use, where we use a 2 of 3 backup. And we can get into that. That's a whole separate conversation for later. Yeah. We also use it for security keys so that you can log into your Discord account or any of your online accounts in the same way that you would with a YubiKey. You can do that via USB or via NFC. We've also got the 2FAs app, which needs time. It needs a concept of time to be able to do that. So you just can't do that on Passport Core. So all of these like additional kind of features that you need to make these types of apps functional and usable in a device that is still offline and doesn't have any Wi-Fi or anything like that, you need to make some trade-offs somewhere. And that comes in the form of connectivity. The main one that we did is Quantum Link Bluetooth, which, as the name suggests, is a Bluetooth-based protocol that we've built on top of with encryption. Just to be specific, it's quantum-resistant encryption, which is hence the name. And that kind of gives us almost like a live communication between Passport Prime, where you're keeping all of your secrets, and at the moment, just Envoy. But we're hopeful that other piece of software will adopt that Quantum Link standard when they see the benefits of it. And because we've got that live connectivity, we're basically like bridging that air gap whilst not removing, I'll say 95% of the benefits of the air gap. We kind of like the term air gap like security. It's obviously never going to be 100% as good because you do have an active connection, but we're taking multiple steps to ensure that it is as close as it can be to an air gap whilst giving that liveness. And that liveness then brings with it, untold amounts of usability improvements, because whenever you're doing most of your interactions now, be that onboarding or transactions or like all of the interactions or most of the interactions are taken on one single device. There's no longer do you have this headache of, oh, right, I've got my phone here and I've got this other offline device. Like, which one do I need to look at? Where do I start the interaction? Like we've removed most of those headaches and we are literally just scratching the surface with what's possible. But those are some of the trade-offs that we made and why we added in the additional functionality so that we are, quote, bridging the air gap essentially, but doing so with caution, so we're not just throwing caution to the wind and being like, let's just use unencrypted Bluetooth to talk to your phone that anybody can eavesdrop on. Like it's very much not that. And I get why people do quickly fall into the rabbit hole of Bluetooth bad. I had the exact same knee-jerk reaction when Zach and Ken started talking about the protocol and how Prime was going to be architected. But when you actually dig in, and we've got an excellent blog post on this, when you dig into the technicals, it's really, really very clever. And I think it's a great set of trade-offs so that we can finally get that good balance of, ultimate security whilst making it approachable for 99% of the population.
Yeah, definitely. We went into massive detail on this on a show that Zach, you joined, I think it was about a year ago. We went into exactly how this works and the trade-offs and everything. I am conscious that we only have an hour today, so we'll see if we get into the technicals, but I would say maybe for people who are concerned or want to have a look into it, then maybe we could link that blog post, and I can also link the other episode for that. I'm interested, Seth, from you and your view on this, the fact that it's opened up and that there's this new operating system and application layer. Obviously, you're now with Cake. How are you viewing this, and like how other companies and other tech can integrate with this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of cool because I've gotten both sides of it. Like, obviously, I was at Foundation during a lot of the building process, not for the last 18 months, but for a lot of the early journey and deciding what it would look like and what the core functionality would be. So I have a deep understanding of the product, but then now as a user who hasn't been following it as closely over the last year and a half, I'm kind of relearning it, seeing where things ended up, and seeing especially the form factor in hand, I think makes it just an extremely useful thing that you can keep with you all the time. I think for me, I'm going to treat it a little bit differently than I would maybe a Passport Core or something like that, and probably use this one more for warm custody, if you will, especially the 2FA, other security aspects of it, or something I'm going to lean a lot more. But when it comes to building on top of it, I think a lot of that goes with that kind of, to me, slightly different use case, in that I absolutely want other things to be built on it that are Bitcoin specific, that are crypto specific. Obviously, Cake Wallet, we're going to build hopefully the first app for Prime, first to enable Monero support, and then down the line to enable the rest of the currencies that we support in Cake Wallet, because I think there's no hardware wallet out there that will compete with Prime, especially as it just continues to rapidly iterate on the software side. So I obviously do want to bring that.
OS.
Not quite. Not the Flex, not the Stacks. No, there is as someone who has used everything under the sun, there is nothing that competes with this right now from a user experience, from a hardware quality perspective. So I'm really excited for that. But also just kind of going back to my roots that were pre-crypto, I'm just really excited from it for it from a security perspective, especially things like PGP signing, like 2FA, like FIDO keys, especially FIDO keys, because I've never done them because they're a pain in the ass and I hate YubiKeys. But I'm excited to be able to start doing them with Prime, and then to see what we can build out that it's not just freedom money centric, but that's freedom tech centric. I think that's one of the things that's most exciting to me, is this is not just a hardware wallet. I think we have to reframe our perspective of what Prime is and not think of it as Passport Core 2.0. It is not at all. Yes, it can do everything Passport Core can, and it will look nicer and it will feel better doing that. But that's only the very tip of the iceberg in what's possible here today already. And then long term, this being an open platform that's much easier to build on than something like a MicroPython, Passport Core, etc. I think that's going to open up a whole new world of possibilities when it comes to this.
Yeah, that was, I think, one of the things that excited me the most when we first spoke about this device was just how much more capable it is to help someone who cares about their privacy and security live their life and do the things they need to do. And I think that's something that, as you said, because it's an open protocol and people can build on top, we don't maybe know exactly what's going to be possible in the future, but the YubiKey like features and things like that are going to be, for someone like me, really, really useful to have one device where I can do all these things. Zach, what did you have to think about when doing that in terms of opening this up to development to sit on top of the device that you're building? Was that a simple decision to say yeah, this can be opened up and everyone can do what they want with it, or was that a concern in any way?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One is this was a big reason why we wanted to build it that I forgot to mention, where the struggle for wallet developers, just wallet developers, like not even the other stuff as Seth was mentioning, that's more just freedom tech and security related, but like the struggle to build stuff for Ledger, or more specifically, like the idea that the only hardware that allowed you to have any kind of apps restricted the apps to just being like coins, right? Like you have like there's no Cake app for Ledger. Like if you use Ledger with Cake and you want to use it with Bitcoin and Monero, you have to install the Bitcoin app on your Ledger and the Monero app on your Ledger. And then if you want to be sending stuff in the same, in the same session, let's say, you have to like open the Bitcoin app. You have to close the Bitcoin app. You have to open the Monero app. You have to close the Monero app. Like, so Cake can't take its user interface and its logo and all the cool stuff they do and put it on a Ledger. They can do that for an iPhone, right? They can do that for an Android phone. They could do that for like desktop apps and browser extensions. But when it comes to the hardware wallet side, right, like the cold storage side, they're stuck with whatever Ledger gives them. They could help with the Monero app, right? If Ledger did not support Monero, or they can make contributions to the Monero app, right? Because it's a MIT code open source. But they have no control over how it's presented on like the Ledger screen. And it's a really crappy user experience to have to switch between these different coins. And then people with the old ledgers, like they ran out of space and like you only have room for 3 apps or whatever. Like it was a total mess. And so that was a huge impetus for us like doing this in the first place. And we had to do the new operating system because we needed we didn't have to. If we wanted to go the Ledger route of making sure that we review all the code in each of these apps, then we could have done something more conservative, because you're basically having to trust that the apps are not malicious. And so like apps are open source on Ledger, but like Ledger has to review the code and make sure there's no security vulnerabilities, because all apps are accessing the same seed on the device. So like theoretically, if you had a malicious Ledger app, it could exfil your seed for the entire device. And so that's why it's so walled garden. And when we realized that, we said, oh man, like if we could build something where you can have apps that we do not have to review, like we as Foundation do not have to do a code review for your app, and we make sure that the app is unable to access like the master seed on the device and it runs in its own sandbox, like that opens the door for an entire open app platform where from a freedom tech perspective, developers can go build whatever they want, right? Like Cake can go build an app with their own Cake UI and their Cake logo. And maybe we choose to put them in like the app store, but we don't have to review the code or anything like that. And if the Cake app was malicious, it can't do anything outside of its sandbox. And so that's one of the big reasons why we had to do KeyOS, because there was no operating system we could have used like for a device like this that would allow us to do that. And so, yeah, that was like a huge part of it. But I thought this SDK would take us a lot longer to do, but now we have all the AI tools. And so we're going to be working with Cake even before the SDK is out, so that they can be like the first app on the device. But we will have an SDK out in the next, I don't want to necessarily commit to a timeline because our track record with that is pretty bad at this point. But in the first half of this year, I think I'm very confident that we'll have the SDK out, and it's going to be so cool. It's actually going to come with a CLI tool, which has become very popular within like the AI world, where you can like one click scaffold an entire KeyOS app, and everything is just done from CLI commands. So like you could even vibe code your own, KeyOS app. And Ken and I just figured out and finalized like how the app store is going to work, how side loading is going to work, how all apps in the App Store have to be reproducible, and our CLI tool will automatically make it so they're basically as reproducible as possible from like without the developers having to do anything. And then we actually are going to do like these build attestations on the foundation side, so that if you're installing an app, you know that it is the reproducible open source app from that specific developer's, repo. And so really cool stuff we're going to be able to do. No one else does it. And I'm really excited about it. And I think once we have that SDK out in the coming months, we're just going to try to onboard as many, developers as possible. And another thing that we have not yet announced, which we can kind of talk about, where it might play into some inside scoop of some manufacturing setbacks. We have over 1,000 units that we're going to be giving away for free to developers as part of this developer program.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Getting them into their hands so they can have a play.
Like that's developer units. Yep.
That's really cool. I wonder, Q, as head of Vibes, what are you thinking here? Like, when I think of vibe coding, I think of you straight away. You must be spinning your wheels and thinking of a billion different things that you can do now.
Do you know what? I haven't taken into the fora yet of trying to vibe code anything for KOS. I think I fell into the trap that I fell into 6 months ago with just general vibe coding, in that it's probably above my pay grade. But like, if the last couple of weeks and some of the side tangential tools that I've built are anything to go by, then maybe it is possible even for a semi Luddite like myself. As the show's resident Nostachill, my first foray will probably be into some form of like NSEC bunker type thing, where you can have your NSEC keys offline. That's the first one that springs to mind, but I'm sure the world is our oyster in terms of what is possible. And that's one of the most exciting things for me, is that we at Foundation, like, we have some excellent ideas for things that we're going to be able to do. We've already started chatting with external teams like Cake and the Lygos team for like DLC lending and things like that. But like, we are no longer the limiting factor for what one of our devices can do, and that makes me incredibly excited. Because like, now that this device is out there and KeyOS is open, and soon the kind of app framework will be public, it's anybody in the world can build one. And by anybody, I literally mean anybody. Now that we, like Zach said, we have these AI tools, like, you can go and build whatever you want. If you want it to come through the official app store, which will be accessible through Envoy, obviously there's going to be some vetting that goes on to make sure that it's secure and not malicious. But I'm just so excited about what people are going to build, because like, we literally have the world as the pot of ideas now.
Yeah, it's very exciting, especially now. It's like, because you're a hardware company, you like, and then you build this and you build the framework, and then you open it up, and like, the use of this device is going to be exponentially better than if you just did things in-house. That's kind of the whole open source ethos, isn't it? And I think that's going to be really exciting to see. Things like, Stealth, who we had on last week, tools like that, and like integrations with things like that. There's so many different billions of different options that will be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm very excited. A friend of the show, a very close friend of the show, actually messaged me this morning for an idea that's privacy fans will be a big fan of, let's just say. So I hope that comes into fruition. I'll be doing everything in my power to help them bring that to life.
One other thing I noticed too is, like, anytime new stuff is being built, I feel like security ends up falling to like the wayside, because it's like, especially in like the Bitcoin or crypto world, like, it was always, you had to go build something and then you had to wait for the hardware wallets to add support. But then even worse now in the general, like, new stuff, security, really, like in the AI world, right? Like, everyone's installing like stuff on their Mac minis and running everything on their, giving everything access on their desktops, you know, on their computers to just give Claude or whatever full access, because like I think you want to be able to experiment and use all the new things and build all this new stuff. And then like years later, you figure out maybe how to make it secure. And if that's in like the crypto side, maybe you get a hardware wallet support like years later. Or if it's a new Bitcoin feature, you get that trickling into hardware wallet support years later. Or with this AI stuff, we'll probably see some ways to better do like the security related to, you know, do you give this thing full control of your desktop computer, or do you have something in there to, you know, introduce just better security? Problem is, like, there's never been a hardware platform where you could actually like write apps and just release them to the hardware instantly. And so you always end up having to like wait. You either like people, I've even heard rumors. I just want to say this is a pure rumor and I don't want to, you know, get in trouble, but I've heard rumors that like Ledger charged money to crypto projects to get like their coins supported in apps. I don't know.
I don't think that's even a rumor. I think that's a known thing, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
An example of this actually that was interesting to me. They actually went to the Zcash community and asked for, I believe it was a $250,000 grant to just build in shielded Zcash support into Ledger.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not going to get in trouble here.
No, it's not. It's not a rumor. They've done this publicly. Yep.
So why? Like, don't the Zcash guys just want to go build a cool app for themselves? Why do they need to go beg or pay someone else to do it for them? It's crazy.
It's antithetical to the freedom movement.
Yeah, it's like, and then by the way, it barely works, and they have no control over, right? Like what the UI looks like or the customer experience looks like, and then you know an update gets released to the firmware that breaks support for everything, which is what's happened numerous times, even in Bitcoin related stuff over the last few years. Like Casa says to customers, don't update your ledger to this firmware, don't update your Trezor to this firmware, because they did something that like breaks support for the Casa app. And like, what a total mess. Like, shouldn't they be allowed to make their own app and just manage their own destiny, right? Within that. And so a lot of this comes down to like the principles, right? You like, if you want to enable, like, you want to give everyone the power to control their own destiny. And if you don't want them to be like a slave to another company that is able to, say, we're going to approve your app, we're going to reject your app, we're going to build this, we're not going to build this, we're going to break your app, right, by releasing an update and not even telling you about it. And then you're scrambling, and people could even lose money as well. And so, that's like a huge part of all of it. And it's crazy to me because like so many of these companies are using kind of freedom tech oriented marketing, but then you look at like the products and it just doesn't match up.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you've put a huge amount of effort into this operating system, and then you need the right hardware for it to go onto. You need the right form factor. You need it to be accessible. You need it to be usable for not just the types of people who read through the guides and spend hours and hours tinkering and messing around, but like anyone. I've held one of these in my hands a while back. It felt amazing. The fact that you have the big screen on there makes a big difference. Like, what other things does it open up having that form factor? And actually, before we go into that, what was it like building this? Well, I know some of it was a fucking headache by the sounds of it, but what was it like building it in America? Because that's not the norm for people, and building it from the ground up. Like, can you talk about the experience? Obviously, we know there's been these delays and now we're getting them into users' hands, which is awesome. But for anyone who hasn't followed it, like what has this been like for you and the team?
Yeah. So firstly, I think one is it's actually nice to be able to go over to the factory and like be there. So I think it can be very helpful to build things in America from like a hands-on perspective. You don't have to jump on some plane going to, China or whatever. So there's that aspect of it. But I think it's our approach has changed over with this being our third generation device. We build this device and we design this device very differently to optimize for the pros and cons of American manufacturing. So Passport uh, Founders Edition and Passport Core, they take so much more effort to assemble, like so many like screws and pieces and all these like assembly steps that have to be taken in the factory. And you end up paying a lot higher labor rate, right, in the US. And also you don't have people that want to necessarily sit there like doing tons of manual operations as well, as opposed to maybe like some, Asian country. It's just kind of the norm, right, to be doing tons of manual assembly steps like gluing and screws and all this other stuff. And so with Passport Prime, we have a very different process where we get all these sub assemblies from our actual like vendors. And so the process of like screwing the circuit board into the device, you just put like 6 screws in, you connect a couple things, and then we have like a $50,000, $60,000 automatic gluing machine that like jets epoxy perfectly onto it. And then you just like put the screen on, put it in the oven for like 15 minutes, comes out, and then you can, move forward with like provisioning the software and packing, doing the pack out. So we have like a much more streamlined build process, which we did not have before. And we're like really careful about getting these sub assemblies where like, if you look at our sub assembly for like the aluminum, the glass, the camera lens, the NFC antenna, like all of this stuff comes as a single piece. And it doesn't even use like a hardware connector for the NFC antenna. It uses these 2 little pogo pins that just make contact when you stick the board in. So everything is like designed as much as possible to come together quickly. And I think that helps a lot with like the US manufacturing. And if you were like going to a normal like outsourced engineering firm to design this, they'd probably end up designing it for like China manufacturing. So if you look at how the Ledger Flex and Stacks were made, they were made that, and they have some videos and stuff up. It's all assembled at Foxconn in Vietnam. And like, you can tell that the design and the engineering of this thing was done for assembly, like at Foxconn. So it's pretty cool to kind of look at like the differences in approach to optimize for the domestic manufacturing.
Does that mean then the way that you've thought about manufacturing and the assembly line, that if/when these devices become very popular and it becomes more used by more normal people, that you can scale up quickly? Or are you always limited by actually getting the materials, and like, will there always be a slowing down trying to get the materials? Or have you now got things refined to a stage where tomorrow like it goes viral and everyone's like, oh, this thing's fucking amazing, like everyone needs one, you get orders through the roof? Like, can you meet that demand?
Yeah, we can scale up now. Can we get to like Ledger size immediately right now of like, well, they used to do 1 million units a year. I don't know if they're still doing that. I don't think we could get to 1 million units in a year with like the current supply chain without like scrambling, but we could get like we can get like, large numbers, no problem right now. And I think we have some great, vendors that we work with to source like, to make all like the CNC stuff and do these sub assemblies. And the sub assemblies do take place in China or overseas. So, but like none of those are security critical stuff, right? Because the actual circuit boards are assembled here. All the QoS is provisioned on the devices here. So you're just like hunks of metal and glass and stuff kind of glued together, right? Are coming from overseas. But we have the process now really nice, but it took a while to get there. So like one other thing I can say here is we actually, and Seth doesn't even know this, like we had to switch manufacturers in November of last year. So that's one of the reasons why things were really difficult from like a, delay process. Not the sole reason, right? Because like it took a long time to get this to market for numerous reasons, primarily I think because of the effort of like the software development. But we actually did a complete move from our manufacturer that we used for all generations of Passport previously, for Founders Edition and Core. And we got out of there and we set up a whole new manufacturer, a whole new setup, dedicated Passport Prime assembly lines, automated glue machines, ovens, all this stuff, try to be as automated and streamlined as possible. And we did all that. We had to do all that in like December of like this past December. So it's been a little crazy. But I'm glad we made the switch because the new manufacturer is awesome. And, the quality standards are like through the roof right now.
Nice. We're I don't know how this happens every single week, but we're coming close to time now, and I want to make sure that we get to some of the questions. I had one more I wanted to jump into because I think it's something that a lot of people are going to be wondering about, and it's one of the major changes. Can you talk about the security with Bluetooth? Quantum sounds really fucking cool, but like outside of that, what would you tell people about the changes, and why would you not be so concerned using something like this? What have you had to address? What have you had to change? Because it's not just, oh, it connects via Bluetooth. It's very different.
Yeah, like my simple answer would be that there's pros and cons to both like the Quantum Link Bluetooth and then a QR air gap. But one really cool thing that we do is we actually establish the initial encryption via an animated QR code scan. So the Envoy mobile app scans an animated QR code displayed on Passport Prime's screen. And that's what it uses to create this post-quantum encrypted tunnel between the devices.
It's like a handshake.
It's exactly. So we do the handshake over QR code. So it's almost like you do the initial handshake in an air-gapped way. And then once you do that air-gapped handshake, you create an encrypted tunnel. So we're not like relying on Bluetooth or wireless comms to do the handshake. So the it's an air-gapped handshake, which then kicks off this post-quantum encrypted tunnel. But then secondly, the Bluetooth chip is literally a different chip on the circuit board inside of Passport Prime. And the main processor running KOS controls the firmware on the Bluetooth chip. So every time KOS boots up, it checks the firmware version on the Bluetooth chip. And if KOS has a newer one, it literally overwrites the firmware. So it has full control over the firmware of the Bluetooth chip. And we write that. That's also open source firmware, by the way. That's in our GitHub, like the BLE Bluetooth Low Energy firmware. And so our firmware on the Bluetooth chip, it only sends messages to KOS that are already quantum linked. So if KOS gets a message from the Bluetooth chip that's not signed and a quantum link message, it just discards it. And so that's really cool. And it's what's even better than like normal air gap QR codes is that means that KOS will only accept cryptographically signed messages that come in from the Bluetooth chip. Like when you're doing air gap QR codes, you can scan anything and it's not human readable, right? And Passport Core, right, will just try to parse the data in the animated QR code, and it'll try to figure out if it can do something with it. But with this, it's only signed messages. So yes, I mean, of course, there's potential cons and and risks and everything, but I like this protocol so much because of like the initial air-gapped handshake and key exchange, and then the fact that it's only signed messages and that we literally control this separate Bluetooth chip on the circuit board.
Very cool. Yeah, very innovative there. Q, do you have any listener questions that we can jump into?
We do, yeah. We've got one pre-submitted and a couple have come through Nostr, which, because it's not linked up to Restream, I can't bring up on screen. But the first pre-submitted question came through this morning via Verissimus. I think I've got that name right. It said, Zach, have the struggles and delays with Prime put you off the idea of building a sovereign phone? Somebody's been listening to your back catalogue of podcasts.
Oh, no. I think I'm put off to the idea of a sovereign phone for other reasons. I see someone posted Foundation's literally cooking. I think Apple's literally cooking right now. And I don't know how any company is going to be able to actually compete, I think, with them. And Graphene is already now working with
Motorola.
Yeah, Motorola, which it won't be for anything for a year, but we'll see, right? If something cool comes out of it. So what I think is more interesting for Foundation is that companion device, because one thing we've talked about a lot internally is that all of our phones and computers over the next few years are going to become like all AI. Like we're literally going to give these AI agents full control of all of our computing devices. And I think having this like dedicated offline companion device that you use for all of your approvals and like all of your security is extremely valuable as all the phones become like AI and all your your computers become AI. So I don't think we're going to be building a phone anytime soon. I think that we will be pushing this Passport Prime and KeyOS platform as hard as we can to make it better and better, like as time goes by. So will we make new devices? Of course. Well, are we interested in making a phone? Honestly, like I'm not really that interested right now.
Good to know. A couple of more questions. BTC Wrestle is asking, in theory, could you load all seeds for every wallet into this device, and could it be used as the signer for all of those wallets? Maybe it's not recommended, but he's just wondering. For example, say you have 10 wallets, you could put all of the seeds into this device and it could act as a signer for all of them. The TLDR is yes, absolutely. We haven't set up a limit, to my knowledge, on the number of seeds that you can put in the Vault app. Obviously, we probably haven't tested more than 10 just yet, but yes, that's absolutely possible. You would just load each one of those temporarily from the Vault app, use it to sign, and then put the seed back in the Vault, so to speak. And yeah, that's all absolutely possible. And kind of
some of those features are missing right now, though, Q, and I think will end up coming in like the next main KeyOS update. So, like right now, the Vault app does not have the ability to import existing seeds. And I believe we also do not have the ability to load a temporary seed from the Vault app. But I did just accelerate a couple issues on our backlog. One of them is being able to import existing seeds because that's like such an important feature. And then another one I just accelerated is the ability to scan that QR code export from Google Authenticator to import all your 2FA codes onto our 2FA app all in one go.
What we're going to have to do is a little bit further down the line, do like a live demo with some of these features and magic backups and importing keys and all the stuff, because I think it's hard to, until you actually see it, it's hard to imagine. So we have to book that in at some point.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. And good call out, Zach. I know we made some last minute changes to get this thing over the line, but everything that we've just discussed will be in the next release or the one after, hopefully. Yep. Follow-up questions. Zach, why did you choose a lithium ion battery instead of Life P04 battery? I'm not sure if you know what that is or if that makes sense.
I think that's like lithium phosphate or something. I don't know. I think the honest answer to that is we probably didn't put enough thought into it at all. For future devices, we'll probably look at doing one of these newer battery chemistries that that has more power density. But we started designing this device like in the end of 2020, or we started kind of like envisioning at the end of 2022, and then starting working on the hardware design in early 2023. And we made a lot of component selections just back then. So if I was doing it again now, I'd probably look at some of these newer battery chemistries that offer up to like 50% greater power density. And we see that Trezor uses a battery like that in the new Trezor Safe 7.
All right, nice. Probably the last one we're going to have time for. Another one from BTC Wrestle says, does Prime only work with Envoy, or can it interact with Sparrow or Ashigaru, etc.?
Yeah, so that's the short of it is that every single Bitcoin wallet that is supported by Passport Core via QR codes or SD card, right, is already supported on Passport Prime. So you can do QR code signing with Sparrow. You can use an SD card with adapter or a USB-C flash drive and move the PSBTs back and forth as well with something like Sparrow or others. We do not support like native USB. Which one is that called? Q.
HWI.
Yeah, exactly. We don't support a hardware wallet interface or HWI, but we support doing it with PSBT files, or QR codes. Of course, as we continue on and we release the SDK in the coming months, we hope and expect that many of these Bitcoin wallets, especially ones that have more specific like user interfaces, like with multi-sig or other stuff like that, will end up building native KOS apps. But for right now, like, we support all the PSBT based stuff within our Bitcoin app that ships with the device.
Very nice. Q, is that all the questions we've got for today?
It is, yep. Just as we run up on time.
Okay. Yeah. Seth, any final thoughts or questions before I wrap it up?
I don't think so. I don't want to make us run over. I know Q and Zach got to run as well. But no, just super excited to see this actually out there. Obviously, it's early days, but already in a fantastic state. So I'm pumped to use it personally. I'm pumped to build on it. It's going to be, I think, something that's game changing in the hardware wallet / freedom tech space. So y'all have killed it. Good job, Q and Zach and the rest of the team.
Thanks, Seth.
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
think we're about to send I'm going to be sending Monday a ton of like developer devices to Vic to distribute to you guys as well. So you guys are going to get a bunch of stuff next week, and I'm really excited to be working with you guys on building the first app for KOS.
Likewise, it's going to be a blast. Hopefully I won't have to touch any ledgers or anything like that moving forward once we get this built out. I'm pumped for that.
Nice. Well, Seth, thanks for joining us. Q and Zach, I know how much work has gone into this behind the scenes, sleepless nights and working weekends and evenings and everything else to make this happen. So congratulations getting it out the door. It's really, really cool.
Thanks, Max. We got to get you yours as well.
It'll happen. Q will come visit me.
He's on the list. Yeah. And just before we sign off, just for the listeners, viewers, I'm going to be doing a Freedom Tech Friday over the course of the next couple of weeks at some point to give you a bit more of a visual demo, going through the user interface and showing you what all the different apps look like and all of the different features within there. So I know this one was more kind of a behind the scenes with Zach, but stay tuned. I'm going to be doing a more visual one over the course of the next couple of weeks. And we're a bit of alpha, but we're also going to be announcing a 6-week-long office hours style invitation to anybody that wants to hop into our virtual office, where I'm going to be doing 6 1-hour weekly shows that are live and interactive to go through in a much more detail for all of these different applications. So stay tuned to the Foundation socials and email newsletter to get information on that, which should be being announced very soon.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Freedom Tech Friday. To everyone who boosted, asked questions, and participated in the show, we appreciate you all. Make sure to join us next week on Friday at 9 a.m. EST and 2 p.m. London. Thanks to Seth, Max, and Q for keeping it ungovernable. And thank you to Cake Wallet, Foundation, and my NIM box for keeping the ungovernable misfits going. Make sure to check out ungovernablemisfits.com to see Mr. Crown's incredible skills and artwork. Listen to the other shows in the feed to hear Kareem's world-class editing skills. Thanks to Expatriotic for keeping us up to date with Boost's XMR chats and sending in topics. John, great name and great guy, never change and never stop keeping us up to date with mining news or continuing to grow the mesh to Dell. Finally, a big thanks to the unsung hero, our Canadian overlord, Jordan, for trying to keep the ungovernable in check and for the endless work he puts in behind the scenes. We love you all. Stay ungovernable.